Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the very animated Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. He's in a very good mood this morning.
Cris was torturing our poor sound guy Goose all day yesterday.
But if you're a sound guy,
pretending he didn't have audio and then had audio, just torturing our guy.
You aged him like 30 years yesterday. Anyway, this is Nick Wright. We got a great Thursday show for you guys today. Aaron Rodgers finally met with the media. We'll hear from him. The NBA playoffs are all set. We'll tell you which games are the big ones, and we're going to start, though, with the latest on the Los Angeles Lakers. The Stars were out in Brooklyn last night. LeBron James, the rest of that banana boat crew in the house to watch their friend Dwyane Wade's final game. This comes a day after LeBron's former team president, Magic Johnson, shocked the basketball world by resigning. LeBron was reportedly among the many stunned by Magic's decision, as was GM Rob Pelinka, who will stay on in that role, where he'll reportedly now have even more power. All right, CC, it is time to look ahead. Without Magic Johnson there within the organization, what is next for the Los Angeles Lakers?
Well, it's hard for me to imagine, even though I'm optimistic, it's hard for me to imagine good things are going to happen because, I mean, who's going to make those decisions? The owner of the team, Jeannie Buss, she's the person making all the decisions. So what are her sources? How's she going to go out? So if I'm a Lakers fan, which I have been since the 9th grade, my brother was drafted by the Lakers. I love the Lakers. Like, how can I be optimistic? Besides them landing LeBron James, knowing that they're in good salary cap situation based on their roster now, they don't have long-term commitments to a bunch of older players. They can sign another max player. I don't know why, dude. That's why I'm leaning on Nick here, why I should be optimistic, because I believe that Magic Johnson, I believe that he wanted to clean house. And not only Rob Pelinka, I believe that he wanted to be able to fire Luke Walton. And I believe there was a problem with that with Jeannie Buss. And if Jeannie Buss felt that way towards Magic Johnson, she must still feel that way. So I don't know how I can be optimistic outside of LeBron being there and not being they don't have the restrictions some other teams have. But I'm concerned that Jeannie Buss, because ever since her dad died, they have gone on the worst history in team. I mean, they have not made the playoffs.
Right. From the time the franchise started in Minneapolis up until when her father passed, they had missed the playoffs 5 years in total. They have now, since her father passed, missed the playoffs 6 years in a row. So that kind of contextualizes.
I mean, that is the family business. She fired her brother 2 years ago for Magic Johnson.
Well, that's the part. I'm sorry to interrupt. You can fire your brother, but you can't fire Luke Walton. You can fire your brother, but you can't fire Kobe's old agent. Like, you can fire your brother, but Magic is so worried that you're so tied to Pelinka and or Luke Walton that he can't face you to tell them, to tell you, I'm quitting in part because I don't want to fire those guys. Something doesn't mesh here. And this report's coming from Ramona Shelburne, who's on the ground and does a great job. But if it is true that the Lakers might take the exit path Magic gave them, even if he gave it to them in a very awkward way, and decide we are going to go down the road of just pretending everything was all good. We'll keep Luke. We'll elevate
Act like
Pelinka.
they made the playoffs.
Right. We're just going to act like the season really did end on Christmas when we were in 4th place and that everything was just fine. That will be a squandered opportunity because while nobody on this set liked how Magic handled his exit, we all, I think, acknowledged it was potentially to the Lakers' benefit to be able to reset and run this team like a real NBA franchise. I hate to bring him up 4 minutes in the show, but I was on with Colin yesterday, and Colin said the Lakers have a fork in the road. Hire David Griffin, try to sign Kyrie, and try to do the Cavs West, or go after Jerry West, like you said. Go after Pat Riley. Go after Bob Myers, and consider trading LeBron and doing a whole reset. I think option A is better than option B, but if they go with option C, which is status quo, elevate Pelinka, bring in Kurt Rambis to a role, then the hell are you doing? Then this will be Jordan's Wizards years, just with a player playing at a higher level. It will be a squandered, Jordan's Wizards years weren't squandered because he was so old, but it will be the squandered end of LeBron James if they don't have a hard franchise reset.
We talk so much about the dysfunction within the Knicks organization, right? That they're this storied franchise, that everything is, a lot of that blame is placed on James Dolan for not building this team right, for making all the wrong decisions. He gets a lot of that blame. They haven't made the playoffs in 6 years. Look at the Lakers. They haven't made the playoffs in 6 years. And yet we all seem so hesitant to place too much blame on Jeannie Buss because of your theory. We like her. She's very nice. She's very well liked and respected around the league. But the decisions she has made in the last couple years, none of them have really turned out to be successful, starting with giving Kobe that contract, all the way up until not wanting to fire Luke Walton. At some point, do you have to say, who holds accountability for what's happening in L.A.?
Well, she's got to hold accountability. Magic's out the door. Pelinka just got there. Him as an agent, what does he know? But when you look back on it, you did a great job too. The Kobe contract, because this is not just one bad decision. This is a number of bad decisions year after year after year. Now, we haven't seen a team that had the type of success over the period of time that Dr. Buss had that success and falling off the cliff. Like the Knicks haven't been relevant for a long time. And even in the times where they were playoff teams, they weren't championship teams.
Right.
The Lakers, man, every decade, they have competed for championships. And if people were being honest, if they were calling things as they were, they would be criticizing Jeannie Buss because her tenure, and you can't get fired when you own the team, but her tenure with the Lakers from a basketball operations, because from what I hear, they're sold out from a business standpoint. So she's doing a good job on the business standpoint. But those basketball decisions have me concerned. And what have me concerned the most is not what happened recently, but what you mentioned, Jenna, all the bad decisions that led up to this.
Well, but this is, you all of a sudden have a path to where you can totally shift the narrative. And Magic, by the way, Magic was his own worst enemy in this regard. If he had simply held a press conference, if he had never promised a second star, and if he had held a press conference at the end of the season yesterday and said, guys, I'm Magic Johnson. No one ever thought I was going to do this job for a decade. The Lakers now have LeBron James and cap space. I have done as good of a job as anyone ever could have imagined. I'm now going to hand it over to someone who can do the details. I'm going to be in the south of France and tweeting. I think people said, okay. Like, hey, when you hired Magic, if he'd promised you, I'll get rid of the bad contracts and deliver the best player in the world, you'd have signed up for that. The Lakers have a similar opportunity now if they do what I think the vast majority of well-run teams would do. Go try to get the best person possible. Not the most comfortable, but the best person possible.
That's what this should be about. And that's where the Lakers have had a problem the last, not 3 months, but the last 3 to 6 years, doing what was best. It started with that Kobe contract, and it has trickled down to, man, even her firing her brother. Was that the absolute best? Hiring Pelinka and Magic. Was that the absolute best? So now it's in question. Man, what is the best for the Lakers, and will they do it?
And I do think firing her brother was the right move, but I also think that this idea, when you are putting out there that Rob Pelinka's job is safe, the story should be, and what the Lakers should be presenting, and by the way, kind of odd yesterday that every player on the roster, LeBron's exit interview was supposed to be when Magic's interview was. That's why we didn't hear from him. But every player on the roster talks yesterday. Haven't heard from any management people. So poor Kyle Kuzma's got to account for what happened, but none of the management people have. But the message, even if it's back channeling, needs to be this. The person we hire as the president of basketball operations is going to decide on Luke, going to decide on Rob, going to decide on everything. No one should be safe.
Right.
No
we thought Jeannie Buss was going to do that person a favor by firing Luke.
Right, but what you can't do is all of a sudden say whomever is hiring is going to inherit them with that person locked in. You could fire him and do that person a favor, or you could put out there it's going to be that person's call. But putting out there Pelinka's safe and you want to keep Luke, that makes today as bad of a day for the Lakers as yesterday potentially was.
And leaves more questions than answers for this organization. All right, we'll talk much more about this coming up. On the other side, though, Aaron Rodgers finally meets with the media. Wait to hear what he has to say. That's next on FS1, and you can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We'll talk Aaron Rodgers in just a second, but first, couple of highlights. Kings and Blazers and Scala Bassier skying for the one-handed putback jam.
Blazers in this one, desperately trying to avoid that 4 seed. Come back from 25 down at the half, playing 6 guys the whole night, and get the win. Relegate the Rockets to the 4.
Huge win.
Heat Nets. Chris LeVert driving baseline delivers a strong dunk over Duncan Robinson.
LeVert's made a huge comeback, had the horrific injury a season ago. Weren't expecting him to be back, especially playing at the level he's playing at. Exciting to see this Brooklyn team. I was at this game last night. Didn't he go to college with that other kid, a Michigan kid he dunked on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true.
I like that. I like that. Michigan on Michigan.
Oh, there you go. You got it. Yeah.
Right? 55 Johnson.
Hornets and Magic.
Dusty don't know.
Nicholas Batum finding Miles Bridges for the alley-oop.
As we've been talking about, the final day of the NBA regular season, you typically don't see guys play all their starters. But the Hornets, they were trying to squeeze into the playoffs. Couldn't quite do it. So they had their full squad out there. Hornets, kind of a bit of a squandered year. They should have found a way.
That's one of Coach Izzo's guys. Coach Izzo was yelling at him a couple years ago. I can verify that.
Hawks and Pacers. Trae Young hitting Darren Collison with a quick between-the-legs move before making the layup.
This is a repeat of what he did earlier in the season. A little delay, backwards behind the leg. He's far more crafty with the basketball in the lane, Steph-ish, as we got into the second half of the season. Definitely had the more impressive, since the All-Star break, more impressive than Luka.
All right. Shifting gears now. It's been a tough week for Aaron Rodgers. Not so flattering article drops detailing the dysfunction between he and Mike McCarthy. A follow-up radio interview with Aaron calling it a smear campaign. Now, yesterday, Rodgers meeting with the media for the first time to address all of it. He maintained that despite everything, the expectations for this Packers team remain the same.
Like I said a couple days ago, I think, there isn't a grace period. This isn't like other transitions where you kind of maybe give a pass for the first year or two as you get acclimated to the system. I mean, we have, a veteran quarterback, veteran offensive lineman. We signed, some big free agents for us, especially 3 on defense. And there's an expectation living and playing here that you're going to compete for championships, and I think we all expect to do that.
We talked, guys, a lot this week about off-the-field Green Bay Packers, relationships, the dysfunction, and how the demise of everything that's going on. But let's bring it back on the field now. What do the Packers have to do to get back to playoff form?
Well, for one, not Aaron McCarthy, but one of the problems that they had, not only defensively, but offensively, they didn't have a physical presence. Since Aaron Rodgers has taken over being the starting quarterback in Green Bay, they've had a top 10 rushing offense one time. So it's hard, even though he said, yeah, we got a veteran offensive line, but you know what they do? They back up pass protecting all the time. So for me, I like for them to change their philosophy. They have to build. People think just because Aaron is a magnificent thrower that you need to throw the ball 40 times. No. You can be a ground and pound and still take advantage of his arm, because also you have to try to help out their defense. They have not been a team that's been in sync, where their special teams, their defense, and their offense played in sync. On defense, we know they need to be better, but what would help out Aaron Rodgers? What about, you don't even have to be a top 10 defense. What about sacks and turnovers? Those are the big plays that they haven't constantly gotten the last couple years. So for me, from a defensive standpoint, I believe that their scheme is going to change. They're going more to a 34 defense. Now, can they create turnovers on the back end? Because if you give Aaron Rodgers a little bit of a run game and you give him, you're going to win the turnover margin, then you just rely on his magic at the end of the game. So the chance of him staying healthy, I believe that that's the type of system that if they're able to get into the playoffs, that's how Aaron Rodgers would be able to thrive. And then this last 3 to 5 years, that's what he should be looking to play. He shouldn't be the hero every game where he's got to throw 45, 50 times to bring the team back, score 40 points. Can Aaron Rodgers win some games 24-17? That would help him out this point in his career.
To your point about you don't have to have a great defense, but have an opportunistic defense, the 15-1 year when they had the 32nd ranked defense, they were number 2 in turnovers. So that defense, while it allowed a ton of yards,
yes,
it was able to, powered a lot by Charles Woodson's great play and others, force turnovers, whether it be strip sacks or interceptions. A team that I've been very critical in how they run their offense is the Seattle Seahawks. I feel like the Seahawks should maybe take a couple pages out of the Green Bay Packer playbook, and the Packers should maybe take a couple pages out of the Seattle Seahawks playbook. And by that I mean the Packers should not be as run-reliant as the Seahawks are, but maybe a little bit more so. And the Seahawks, on the flip side, they shouldn't be as happy as the Packers have been, but maybe a little bit more so, because the element that you bring up all the time when you talk about teams relying on their run game more, that I think gets lost to a degree in the analytics community, is the way it lessens the injury risk for your quarterback. Because we look at injuries as random. We look at injuries as mostly unpreventable. When they happen, they just happen. What can you do? It's bad luck. But there is an element of, if your quarterback has a chance, a 1 in 200 chance of breaking his collarbone every time he drops back, well, if all of a sudden he's dropping back, 8 less times a game, then you're removing those 8 opportunities for injury. So it's not always that the run is necessarily the most effective play on this given snap, but it's that if we can have a passable running game, do we put our star in jeopardy less? Because one thing we have learned over the last decade consistently is if Aaron Rodgers isn't 100%, the Packers are not a good football team. If he's not on the field, or last year when he was hampered with the hairline fracture in his leg, they are not a good football team if Aaron Rodgers is not Aaron Rodgers.
And history would tell us, too, you can't be a passing team and play in Green Bay. I mean, you have a huge advantage because of the elements. You live in the elements. But now I'm going to take that away because you know what's the best thing I do? Passing. Well, there's a Saturday in the playoffs. There's a Sunday in the playoffs, that being wild card division round. You might not be able to throw. So why would you develop a system that's based on you throwing the ball? I don't care how good Aaron Rodgers is. You don't have a dome there. If you get home field advantage, you're going to be playing in difficult conditions. Take advantage of those by having a more physical team. That's why the run makes sense. I don't care about the analytics community. When you're trying to balance out a football team, you're trying to have a physical presence. That's what Seattle does. Now, could Seattle do a little bit more? Seattle has the problem of they had all that money on their defense.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers didn't have that problem. So it's hard for those teams to balance it out based on economics.
But sometimes there's this reliance on the greatest guy to ever throw the quarterback. He's on your team. Throw him out there. He'll figure it out, because the chances are more often than not he's not going to get hurt. He's going to win a game. He'll eke it out. But one of the things that was detailed in this article was the fact that this guy, Aaron Rodgers, was so frustrated by the lack of innovation and creativity in Mike McCarthy's offense. Do we see this changing under Matt LaFleur? Are we going to see a completely different offense, more creative, more innovative, more, more avant-garde, if you will?
Well, I'm glad the story came out about Aaron Rodgers, because I believe he was at a crossroads, as you talked about with Colin, with the Lakers. Because after the firing of the coach, he was going to get a lot of criticism. Then all these stories start coming out. Then he tries to come out and debunk it. I believe that Aaron Rodgers will be at his best. He will be focused. He will be as focused now he has experience as when Brett Favre. Because, man, Packer Nation was split. Oh, we want Brett back. Well, man, we got Aaron Rodgers. I believe he will, because at that point, I remember that's when I met Aaron Rodgers. Oh, man, he was out to prove people wrong. Man, I am the future quarterback. I should have been the first pick in the draft. I believe that's the quarterback that Matt LaFleur is going to get. So I believe Aaron's mind will be wide open. I believe this offense will look totally different than anything we've seen Aaron operate before, Nick.
2 quick points. One is on Matt LaFleur. People that watched the Titans last year, I'm one of them that said, wait, he's an offensive mastermind. Smart football people really believe that he absolutely is going to bring wrinkles and elements to the offense that were not there previously, and that he is one of those bright young offensive minds.
Right. Take a look at Kyle Shanahan and what he did. Look for him to look more like what they do in San Francisco compared to what they did in Tennessee.
Certainly what Kyle Shanahan was able to do with a healthy, really good Matt Ryan, when you didn't necessarily always see that in Washington. I would say Kyle Shanahan in Washington was one guy, like Matt LaFleur in Tennessee, potentially because of who the quarterback was, then someone different in Atlanta. But the other point is this, quickly. Aaron Rodgers made a very big point to tell everyone that would listen, Mark Murphy never told me not to be part of the problem. That conversation never happened. I don't know if that conversation did or didn't happen. But now Aaron Rodgers is very incentivized to not be part of the problem. Aaron Rodgers is very incentivized to make that article look like it was wrong, even if it was right. So if he had problems buying in before, if he had problems going with what the coach wanted before, if he had problems installing exactly what the coach wanted, I think those problems will go away, at least in the beginning, because Aaron Rodgers knows if things don't go right in Green Bay this year, people are going to blame
then
12,
it's on him.
fair or otherwise.
Right. All right, let's take a break. Coming up, could an injury shake up the NBA playoffs? We'll tell you who's hurt and for how long. We'll explain next on First Things First. Our next PBC Fight Night is a good one. Two former champs square off Saturday, 10 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Back here, First Things First. Oh, we got to go viral because last night was Dirk's last game in the NBA, and fittingly, he played the Spurs, one of his biggest rivals in his 21 seasons in the league. They honored him with a video last night, and this was Dirk's reaction.
And now, a 14-time NBA All-Star selected to 12 All-NBA teams, a league MVP and an NBA champion, a 7-foot forward from Germany, number 41, Dirk Nowitzki.
Really nice. I mean, when you're trying not to cry, playing that Legends of the Fall music doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, to me, this is equivalent. If you're in the NFL, you go to New England, where they don't respect anyone, and Bill Belichick puts up a tribute video of your career totally out, and it's someone either from the Jets or the Dolphins, someone they have a fierce rivalry with. That's what happened last night, Nick, there in San Antonio. Class act.
It was, you mentioned the Patriots. They did something similar for Jason Taylor, post-career, with someone they had a rivalry with. But this is, the Spurs do everything right. They are a class organization. And I got emotional watching that because what I think was going through Dirk's mind there is, as you say all the time, you have a lot of other cool jobs. He will never get introduced like that again.
No.
He will never have that moment, and he's had that moment around 80 times a year for 21 years. And so it was one thing to have his final home game. It's another thing to have the last time they're going to call my name. And it was great they did it like it was a home game, even though it was in San Antonio.
Yeah, he should get a copy of that, because he's going to get stuff like, hey, Dirk, take out the trash. That's what I get. No tribute videos around here. Hey, buddy, clean up your mess.
You want us to introduce you when you walk in every day?
Tribute videos around here.
You're no Hall of Famer up in here, homie.
Dr. Schwartz, to start your morning.
Yo, bro. Big for no reason.
The Masters.
That's what I got yesterday.
The Masters starts today in Augusta.
That's funny.
Tiger tees off at 11:04. Tiger in search of his 15th major and his first Masters victory since 2005. Vegas has him at 16-1 odds to win. See, what do you expect from Tiger in Augusta?
If he's going to win, if that Vegas is going to be right, Tiger's got to play the par fives better. People would talk about his putting, how he struggled with his putter of late. Yes, one of the worst on tour right now as far as putting the ball. Typically, when he comes through those gates at Augusta, his putting gets squared away. So I'm concerned about the par fives, and I'm concerned about the first 9 holes today. Tiger Woods, people will not believe this. He is the most nervous golfer on that first hole. Look at it. Big tournament after big tournament. Bogey, double bogey on the first hole, out of bounds. So watch those first 9 holes a day, and he's got to shoot under par, Nick, because he can't chase down these young kids.
And he can't give himself a big deficit after the first round. The last time he won, the only time he's won in the last 5 years, any tournament tour championship, I think it was a 65 in the first round, and where he didn't give himself that big deficit. But the other element for Tiger, you mentioned the par fives. His career at Augusta, where he's been great. He's way over par on par threes.
Yes.
He's way over par on par fours. And I think he's 169 under on the par fives. He has to make his hay there. And I never believed it till you told me. He is straight up nervous on the first hole of these tournaments. See if he can keep it in the fairways at Augusta.
Nick and I got a $100 bet. I'm betting he bogeys the first hole. Nick, of course, Tiger Woods is going to birdie it.
No, well, listen, anything but a bogey. But you also told me I'm not supposed to bet on Tiger this tournament. You think I'm a jinx?
Did you listen?
No, I bet on him.
There you go. To the NBA now. Dwyane Wade played in the final game of his career last night. And how about this? A triple-double in front of LeBron, CP3, Melo, and our own Cris Carter. See, what was it like? What was the atmosphere like there in Brooklyn?
It was very exciting, and it's really hard to match because we saw not only Dwyane Wade but Dirk get their honors at home in front of their home crowd, and we know those would be special. But, man, in Brooklyn, man, you got no connection to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's getting ready for the playoffs. Man, they put out, man, I mean, they do a good job with the product there as far as entertainment, the videos honoring him, and then they had made a pact with LeBron and Melo that they would all be in attendance. They had a special entry sitting right there on the court. So it was a special night for one of the great all-time classy NBA players.
Triple-double for Dwyane Wade in his final game, and the assist that gave him the triple-double, you know who hit the jump shot? Udonis Haslem, which was quite fitting.
Yes.
Also, Dwyane Wade's been doing these jersey giveaways all year long. Budweiser did an amazing 4-minute ad talking about that. He gave his final jersey away to Melo because Melo didn't get the end he was supposed to get. Melo and Wade never got to play each other in a game that Melo thought was going to be the end to do the jersey giveaway. So the last game he gave to his good friend Carmelo. I thought that was really touching and really cool. One of the all-time greats.
I just think Dwyane Wade likes to take off his shirt in return. Goodness gracious.
A lot. I don't mind it. The NBA playoffs are set, and so are Knicks' weekend plans. The Thunder are the 6th seed in the West. Their matchup with the 3 seed Blazers starts on Sunday. Nick, can Russ and PG make some noise out West?
I think they're happy with the draw. I think that they're happy they avoided Houston. I know Houston didn't want to play them, it would appear. I think that, listen, one of these two teams is going to be able to avenge what was a very depressing round 1 last year.
Yes.
The other team is going to have real answers in the
Real questions.
real questions to answer this offseason because it'll be 2 straight second-round exits. I think the Thunder have to like their side of the bracket. You get Portland in round 1 with no Nurkic. You potentially have Denver in round 2. So, yes, I think the Thunder absolutely can upset. To me, this is the most likely upset of any of the first-round series out West.
They set themselves up with the huge comeback win over Houston the other night that put them in position that, man, no Nurk. Of course, I want to play Portland. I don't want to play Utah. I don't want to play Houston. They got the best matchup. Now, getting through this matchup, because they still going to have to deal with Damian Lillard and our boy CJ. They're going to have to deal with them. Those two can take over a series.
Absolutely.
All right, finally, game 1 between the Sixers and the Nets. The 3-6 matchups is set for Saturday. The Sixers, though, might be without their main attraction. GM Elton Brand said it's possible Joel Embiid could miss the beginning of the playoffs with a sore left knee. He's been dealing with knee and back issues ever since the All-Star break. So, Nick, how vulnerable is this team if Joel Embiid is sidelined even for a little bit?
Man, every team in the playoffs, if they're without their best player, is vulnerable. That includes the Warriors if Steph Curry were to be out. But the Sixers in particular, because they're the thinnest of the really good teams. The Warriors are probably the next thinnest, to be honest, because of how much high-level players they have at the top of their roster. But the Sixers, everything needs to go through Joel Embiid. And if we're being honest about Jimmy Butler as a Sixer, Jimmy Butler has not been all-star fringe all-NBA Jimmy Butler as a Sixer. He hasn't been that guy this year. Now, maybe he will be in the playoffs. Maybe he has just been deferring to Joel Embiid. But I can't just say, oh, with no Joel Embiid, we're going to start getting 27 a night from Jimmy Butler. I don't know that that's true. Now, I think they're being very cautious with him. He hurt this knee. If you remember, it was here in New York when he jumped over Regina King,
right?
Regina King the night before she won her Oscar, I think, or a couple nights before. And then he played in the All-Star game, missed 8 games afterwards, and they've been cautious with him since. But I'm very curious to see, is this a little subterfuge by Elton Brand? Are you trying to maybe, trying to make the Nets have to prepare for one thing or the other? Or is Embiid really less than 100%? Because if the Sixers are going to do what they plan to do this postseason, it all runs through the best player on their team.
If Joel Embiid is not 100%, this is the upset of the first round. All right, they play the first 5 games in 10 days. They start on the 13th. The 5th game is the 23rd. So in that, if he's Nick, you got 5 games. So you're basically playing every other night. So for me, looking at the series, looking at the matchups, and there are some good matchups in that first round in both the East and the West, this is the upset because I know, man, they'd have a hard time matching up with Brooklyn because they do have some depth. And if Brooklyn gets hot on the 3-point line, we know Philly's good for their defense, but no defense can stop a team once they get hot shooting the 3 ball. And if Joel Embiid is nicked up or not at 100%, Man, this to me is the upset of the first round.
What can't he do if he's not 100%? Where can you exploit that weakness if you know you're only getting 50, 60, 70%?
He won't be as good defensively. He won't be. Do you remember the play? Was it who was it? Was it on Steph? I can't remember the play where the guy went underneath him and then he blocked it.
Kyrie,
thank you. It was on Kyrie. Oh yes, and the big Sixers Celtics matchup. Exactly right. The type of nimble athleticism that you don't typically see from a guy who's 7'1", 7'2", that's there. And I would wonder, can you play? One of the reasons I said I think Sixers will be fine with the short bench is in the playoffs your rotation shortened. Your best guys play 36 to 40 minutes instead of 32 to 36 minutes. If you have to nurse the knee and Embiid's on anything close to a minutes restriction, that just not being out there is something he can't do.
Yeah, if he can't get up and down the court. Yeah, if he can't be as athletic as he is right there, that takes away. Because he also, when he brings you out to the three-point line, that pump fake and going into the paint, how much of that are you going to see? So it's something we must watch.
One other thing on getting up and down the court, to quote one of Chris's sources, the great Butch Carter, in the NBA playoffs, the centers are not going to get the calls. The one place where, if you have a very athletic big man, you can get the advantage is if he can beat you up the court on offense.
Before you set up that
Before
defense.
you set up, they also won't call offensive fouls on a big man who is going to immediately initiate position. And so if Embiid's not 100%, then he's not going to be beating guys up in the secondary break. There's just different things to watch. I think Elton Brand's tricking us a little bit. Personally, I think Embiid's going to be fine, but if he's not, this is a big deal for Philly.
I'm sorry, did you just reveal who Chris's source was?
Listen,
isn't that the whole point of a source?
Listen, man, it's his big brother. It's his big brother's been carrying him his whole life.
So much for all your information now.
It's just one of his sources. Listen, man, Chris been riding the great Butch Carter's coattails for 30 years. I mean,
definitely the last 2 years here.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the Golden State Warriors.
Eat that. Take that.
They're,
hey, man, I got a brother that played in the NBA, coached in the NBA. That ain't no loss for me.
It's more than Nick and I have.
Hey, yeah.
The Warriors' quest for a three-peat begins Saturday against the Clippers in the first round. If this past season is any indication, the Dubs will be just fine. They took the season series from the Clips 3-1. All right, CC, what's the biggest obstacle to the Warriors three-peating?
Man, the biggest obstacle is themselves. Let's see Steph Curry in that first quarter. Is Steph going to be healthy? Are they going to have to make the adjustment? Man, the Clippers don't have the type of firepower, but Doc Rivers is one of those type of coaches that typically can come up with a scheme to be able to slow the game down, to give his team a chance, because the Clippers in this, man, they're overmatched in this one. So the only chance is Steph Curry, if he's nicked up, because I believe that Kevin Durant will be on a mission in this playoff. Not only to three-peat, but that he might personally three-peat as the finals MVP before he leaves Golden State.
All right, so the biggest obstacle as a team is the Rockets. And now, by the way, the Rockets are on their side of the bracket. The Rockets are the team they would be facing in round 2. But obviously the Warriors would prefer in the first round. They had 3 options. The Spurs, who are just so well coached that nobody likes playing the Spurs as a heavy favorite, because even if you're going to beat them, they might show your next opponent good ways to defend you. Having Pop have 2 weeks with you. Nobody wants to play the Thunder in the first round just because they have the 2 high-level players. So they're happy they get the Clippers. But I'll tell you one guy to watch who's going to be a pest: Patrick Beverley. The Clippers are a team that you're going to get a little nicked, a little dinged, a little bruised playing. Montrezl Harrell is going to be out there as a 6', 7.5" monster rebounder, throwing elbows and knees and hips into you. Patrick Beverley, who Russell Westbrook had never been injured his entire basketball career, till one day he tried to call timeout, and Patrick Beverley ran into him. This was years ago. Yes. Patrick Beverley was playing in Russia 18 months before he injured Russell Westbrook. He has never forgot.
Him and LeBron got into a confrontation.
And he is going to be knocking Steph Curry down. He is going to be setting illegal screens. So do the Warriors have any chance of losing the Clippers? No. Would I be shocked if this series goes more than 5 games? Absolutely. I would wager any amount of money this series is over in 5 games
Nick,
maximum.
do you have a little something for players like Patrick Beverley, that keep stuff going?
What do you mean?
I mean, you like him, you like to put their information out there.
Listen, I think Patrick Beverley's story is a good one, and
yes.
I think he's important to this series. I think Patrick Beverley, I knew him from when he played in Houston.
No, he's got a great story. He went around the world.
Around the world. And he has been, this is the small things that, not to make everything about the Lakers, but that a well-run team like the Clippers, the well-run team in L.A., they find, okay, we're going to lose Chris Paul. We're going to have to do a sign and trade with Chris Paul. Well, give us Patrick Beverley. Give us that guard so we can build something with him. So the Clippers have no shot in this series to beat the Warriors, but they have a shot to beat up the Warriors. And when this next opponent for the Warriors is the Houston Rockets, that's where it could matter.
Is there any way this Warriors team can beat the Clippers if you either, A, don't have Steph Curry or Steph Curry is not at 100%?
Yeah, Steph Curry could be out this whole series. They'd still beat the Clippers.
Yes.
I mean, they're still going to beat the Clippers. The thing is, how much are they going to be banged up compared to Houston, who's got to get through Utah, and that might be 5 or 6 game series. So Golden State, it's important that they come out and try to get this series over with, because the more you play, it seems simple, but the more the chance of an injury. Guaranteed at least a couple prominent players in the playoffs, they will get hurt and it will affect their team.
I know the Warriors have said Steph Curry is going to be fine for game 1 of the playoffs. Given that they didn't draw San Antonio, they didn't draw OKC, they did draw the Clippers, I wouldn't be shocked if they are a little extra cautious and let Steph have an extra few days to recover. They can beat the Clippers.
Day or minute restriction?
No. I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked if they give him the game off. Oh. If they tell him to show up for game 2. Like, they can beat the Clippers without Steph. After the first round, they obviously need Steph in every series moving forward. But, yeah, the Clippers can hurt you, like more literally than figuratively, and that's what the Warriors should watch out for.
All right, good stuff. Let's take a break. Coming up, will Magic Johnson's resignation fuel LeBron next season? That's ahead on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we're now joined by NBA champ Antoine Walker. Thanks for hanging out, Antoine.
Good to see you, sir.
It has been a long, drama-filled NBA season. We are finally at the playoffs, and now we have some actual games to discuss, Antoine. Let's start with your former team, the Boston Celtics. They are gearing up for Game 1 of their first-round matchup with the Pacers on Sunday. After a very inconsistent season, the Celtics ended up as the 4 seed in the East with a tough battle ahead, and they'll have to do it without Marcus Smart. The fiery guard will miss the first 2 rounds with an oblique injury. Yesterday, Kyrie addressed the media, tried to put this season in perspective. Take a listen.
A lot of just up and downs that just could have been handled better from a professional standpoint, personal. And I'm talking about me personally. I'm not talking about our team. And it's just I had a lot of questions, a lot of just things that weren't being answered straight up about what it takes to be a great professional in this league. And I think that the frame of that is just outdated. In terms of what you have to be every single day. And it's not that hard. You know what I mean? Like the media and all the stuff that comes with it. I think that it's an exciting part of that you got to be aware of. But the real part is just, literally what I used to wake up every single morning to do. Is to put a ball in the hoop and be really great at it.
Antoine, when this season started, the bar was set high for the Boston Celtics. A lot of people had the Celtics either coming out of the East or at least close to it. What are your expectations now after everything that's happened this past regular season as they gear up for the playoffs?
It's going to be difficult, and it's kind of just listening to Kyrie, just the lack of confidence that he has in his team and his unit is going to make it very difficult. Now, do I believe they can get past Indiana? Yes. And I believe that because they don't have a star. Indiana's missing Victor Oladipo. We will finally understand why they won't be able to get past, because they need Victor Oladipo to get past the Boston Celtics. And Kyrie's a finisher. He's having a career year. He's putting up big-time numbers. He'll be able to close these games off against the Pacers. But it's going to be a struggle. I'm looking at the 6-7 game series, and then obviously we know what awaits in the second round if they're able to get past the Pacers with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah. Listen, this is put up or shut up time for Kyrie now. He has said all year, I'm waiting for the playoffs. They are going into a series where, because they don't have Oladipo, Kyrie is the only true star on either team. They were able to hold on and get home court advantage in this series when at a time it looked like they were not. And I want to, listen, Boston folks, I don't want to hear any Marcus Smart excuses. I know Marcus Smart's out. Oh, he's the guy that guards Bojan Bogdanovic the best. I know it. It's true. You're supposed to win this series now. And this was the team, almost everyone had them coming out of the East. Some people had them challenging the Warriors for the title. That this was the team that was built to challenge the Warriors. It was deep. It had multiple All-Stars. It had soon-to-be NBA scoring champ Jason Tatum. And Kyrie all year long through the fits and starts of the season has said, just can't get me to the playoffs. You're there now, and you're there now against a team that you should go beat. Now, Kyrie, I think, has matured over the course of the year. Kyrie has played the best season of his career without any question from an individual standpoint. It is very important for him that he shows up big in this series, and Kyrie's play, along with the general depth of the Celtics, should be enough to beat the Pacers. But I'm not assigning them. I'm not advancing them to the second round automatically. The Pacers are the type of team they've lost to all year long. Teams that are less talented but more cohesive. The type of team that has beat the Celtics all year long is the type of team the Celtics were in the playoffs last year. An under-talented, cohesive unit that's well coached. So this is going to be the best series in the first round out East. And I don't think the Celtics have an obvious path, but the path should be through Kyrie Irving.
Well, if you're a professional athlete, how do you or if you're Brad Stevens addressing this team before they take the court, how do you say, okay, let's forget what happened. Let's forget the ups and downs and the inconsistent regular season. You got a new slate. Everyone's starting from scratch now. How do you get the player in the mindset to start fresh and to live up to what the Boston Celtics expectations should be?
I know through talking to you, you come from the theory of, oh, you can't hit that switch. You tried that before with some talented teams. Once you get to the playoffs, you weren't able to do it. So I'm a believer based on experience. Unless you just have uber more talent than the other team, or you are a bunch of veterans, or you maybe got guys at midseason who didn't necessarily have that chemistry, I believe what we're going to see is what we saw during the regular season. Now, I do believe from Kyrie, back to your first question, I believe that Kyrie is going to try to do a LeBron-ish type thing. Especially now without Marcus Smart in there. Like, they should get more minutes because typically the minutes was a problem there in Boston. But I know Kyrie can get his game off, but can he make the other young players feel like they're included? I think that is the biggest question in them getting through Indiana and trying to get through that series cleanly, because they need to be rested up for Milwaukee, because I don't think the people in Boston will accept, oh, well, we lost to Milwaukee 4-2 in round 2 because Milwaukee is the #1 seed.
I think you got to, if I'm Boston, a couple things work in their favor. One, you got home court advantage. I know they wasn't a great home team, but still you got the important games on your home floor. I think that plays a big part in the playoffs. And typically your young players play better at home. So you got to be. But then I think with Marcus Smart being out, it helps Jason Tatum. It helps Jaylen Brown, because now they know
maybe
their minutes.
Gordon Hayward too.
Yeah, it helps. Now your minutes, your minutes will be there.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be able to play. They'll have to look over their shoulder if they make a mistake. Won't have a short leash. He's gonna have to stay with those guys longer. So I think it helps in that sense. And I just think right now with Kyrie Irving being the closer, and he is a great closer, they'll be able to get them past the Pacers. We'll talk about the second round when we get there, if they get there.
Nick, Marcus Smart, though, he has kind of a he does a lot of things. His stat sheet won't necessarily always be the way to be able to look at his overall value, but his overall physical play is kind of a buffer for Kyrie. Now, with him being out, aren't you concerned about...
Listen, you would be super concerned if Oladipo was playing, because Smart would be the one checking Oladipo, not Kyrie. The Pacers don't have a guard that's just going to kill you, to Antoine's point. But yes, Marcus Smart is invaluable to this team on court, off court, when he plays, when he doesn't, because of the intangible stuff, because he can guard the other team's best perimeter player, so you can hide Kyrie. Now they're going to ask Jaylen Brown to step into that role. The other thing for Marcus Smart, to his credit, going into this season, he and Charles Barkley were the two worst high-volume three-point shooters in NBA history. This year he was shooting 36%. He had, in a summer, got it better, and it added an element to that Celtics team. It made him a much more useful offensive player. They will miss him. But listen, I'm going to hold the Celtics to what they were supposed to be. They have not dealt with devastating injury this year. They have not dealt with some out of their control, unforeseen circumstances. You have the team you said you were going to have. If you would have, at the beginning of the season, said you're going to play Milwaukee in the second round, they would have said, awesome. Sign me up for it, because we're going to be the 1 seed. They're going to be the 4 seed. All year long you've said, don't worry about get us to the playoffs. You're in the playoffs. I want to see it. Prove me wrong, Boston. I've been the one man on a hill saying your team's not that good. Prove me wrong this postseason.
I agree with you to a certain degree. I just think it's going to be too hard to just turn it on and we're going to see a team play great basketball. I think they're going to struggle. I think it's going to be hard. I think because of the star power on the Boston side, they'll be able to get past the first round. But after that, I think you're up for a miracle to think they're just going to turn it on and beat a team possibly like the Milwaukee Bucks, who've won 60 games and 16 games better than that.
Well, one note, just real quick before we move on. If they can't do that, then we're watching the last 5 to 12 games of Kyrie Irving as a Celtic. That's all that's on the line is retaining Kyrie Irving, so no pressure.
All right, Antoine, we'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Take a break coming up. Switch gears, talk some football. Will the Patriots draft the heir to Tom Brady's throne? That's next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, former NFL head coach Eric Mangini is in the building, sitting in his chair.
How are you?
Former host of the show.
No, it's all good. It's all good. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Let's
You're
talk some
fired
football.
up this morning.
I'm fired up.
Look what we're doing to start the segment.
Time for your Subway Choice moment. Tom Brady will be 42 when the Patriots kick off their season. He wants to play till he's 45. And while that's a great goal set by Brady, it's still his goal. The Patriots have to start planning for life after Brady. New England reportedly met with quarterbacks Daniel Jones out of Duke and Will Grier out of West Virginia ahead of the draft. Coach, there's also Josh Rosen available as a possibility, but should the Patriots be planning for life after Tom Brady?
Yeah, but they've been planning for life after Tom Brady for about 7 years now, and who knows where this is going to go. Is this going to be this season? Is it going to be next season? There's no way to tell, and it's hard to bet against Tom. And to some degree, they have been doing that. They picked up Danny Eitling last year in the 7th round, and you look at Brian Hoyer. He was a guy that they picked up
Jimmy Garoppolo
6 or 7 years
Jimmy
ago.
Garoppolo trade, yes.
Yeah, there's been several quarterbacks that have either been drafted or signed by New England since Tom's been there, and it's a unique situation. He rarely gets hurt, and he continues to play at a high level, but at some point it's going to catch up with him, and they need to have continually put that into place.
But we would agree, Hoyer was brought in case Brady gets hurt, not in case Brady retires. Like, Hoyer was never going to be the heir apparent for Tom Brady. He was brought in. One of the reasons they wanted him in the Jimmy Garoppolo trade was because he knows the system. He had been there before. He would be able to, in a spot duty, fill in for a series or a game, right? That's a different situation than, are you going to draft a quarterback?
I believe this, what Coach Mangini believes, that New England, they wouldn't trade for a guy just in case that. Also, they would trade believing they could get through another season with Hoyer while a young guy groomed him, while they groomed a younger player. I believe that they feel stronger about Hoyer than if they drafted a guy thinking that he's going to play right now. Would you agree with that, Coach?
Yeah, I do. I think that they feel comfortable with him in that role. And look, they won a lot of games with Matt Castle. And the other great thing about quarterbacks, even if Tom does play another 3, 4, 5 years, quarterbacks are currency. So if you can get them in the preseason, if you can show that they've developed, if you can see that progress, then you can trade those guys away. And they look, Matt Castle didn't even start his senior year in college and didn't play at all his senior year in college.
They got 2 second-round picks for him from the Kansas City Chiefs.
Two second-round picks, and there was Ryan Mallett, who's a 3rd-round draft pick, who they ended up trading away, and we'll see where Jimmy Garoppolo comes out.
So Mallett and Garoppolo are the only 2 quarterbacks they've drafted since Brady's been Brady that's been a premium pick. Everyone else has been a 6th or 7th rounder. Now Castle, they got a great return for. Jacoby Brissett, they got a real return for. But they've only spent 2 picks that you would top 100 picks on quarterbacks. One was Ryan Mallett, the other was Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe Garoppolo was drafted to be the heir apparent to Brady, not because they expected to then flip him one day. And Brady just outlasted everybody's even most adventurous expectations. It's why this year you are hearing them associated with the quarterback again, because now, finally, Brady's expectations line up with, well, you draft a quarterback, you're going to have him for 4 years. Brady's not saying he's going to play 4 more years, saying he's going to play 3 more years. So that would make sense. Now, I don't think Will Grier or the kid from Duke are the next quarterbacks of the New England Patriots. I think that if they go with a quarterback, it's going to be Josh Rosen. I think it makes too much sense. I think there's too much value there. I talked to Charles Davis last night, our friend and a draft guy and college football guy on Fox, and he said he would be shocked if Arizona is able to get better than a second-round pick for Josh Rosen, a second-round pick and something else. So if New England, if that's true, New England's sitting there at 32. They could, that would be better than any second-round pick, obviously. If the Patriots go with a quarterback, I think it's going to be via trade for Josh Rosen, not via drafting Will Grier or Daniel Jones.
One thing that I've learned, and I know Coach Mangini, not only in covering the team, which him and I have over the last number of years together, but being there and being in the league, we can't always think conventional-wise as far as New England. You have to think outside the box. Last year, they had a warning. Rob Gronkowski, I need more incentives to be able to come back. But it was on the board. He might retire last year. They looked at trading him. How did they replace him? They didn't rush out, spend the first, second-round pick on Gronk. So maybe with Brady, it might not make sense to us. Maybe they might not draft a guy and eventually either someone in the league, because Belichick, to me, that's what he, besides the game situation, preparation, taking advantage of other players and their skill around the league, because I still believe it's on the board, a Josh Rosen type, the backup to Brady, the next Brady is on someone's roster in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I see his greatest strength as being able to deal in the pro market and being able to deal and take advantage of other organizations that transition where they want to get rid of guys because they want to bring their own guy in, and New England can get people at a discount. And there is that developmental aspect. There is that we can do things with this player that you can't do because our system is set up that way.
Say, for instance, say Jameis Winston. He's got one more year on his contract. I could see Jameis Winston being the type of player because of his skill level, how he distributes the football. Belichick believe in that. I believe I can get better out of him. If he doesn't get it right this year in Tampa with Bruce Arians, those are the type of situations that I would look at around the league and just be open up my mind to realize this is not the other 31 teams. This is New England.
Well, then I'm confused because from what everyone is saying, it seems like Josh Rosen would be the perfect fit. It's not an irresponsible choice. It's not a young kid from the draft. It's a guy that a lot of teams already did their due diligence on and did their research on. He can play. He was just in a really, bad system in Arizona.
But that's the question.
Can he play?
And the question is, what did the Patriots think of him coming out of college? Just because the Cardinals really liked him and I really liked him and some other people did, does not mean the Patriots really liked him. So if they believe in Josh Rosen, what I do, what the Cardinals did last year, then he does check every box, right? Like, he makes all the sense in the world, and he's a guy that could benefit from a redshirt year, at least a redshirt year after the way he got beat up last year of sitting and learning. But it might be that the Patriots last year, when they evaluated Josh Rosen, said, we got a third-round grade on him. So, of course, we're not then going to trade the 32nd pick of the draft for him.
Well, to me, look, it'd be a great situation for Josh Rosen to be able to go in and learn under Tom Brady, to be able to go in and work with Josh McDaniels. But there's also the element of personality and whether or not they feel that his personality as a quarterback fits with what they want him to do. And to me, that's a big question mark. And cost. If you know that someone's going to trade a guy, if you know someone's desperate to move a guy, then you're going to pay as little as you possibly can. And that may be the case, too. If they get him cheap enough, then he's worth, kind of like Josh Gordon, taking a shot at and seeing where you go with him.
Yeah, and they might have already have the parameters for a deal, but they're not in the deal zone.
Right.
It's going to have to be closer to the draft. They get Kyler on their roster. I could see once they get Kyler on their roster, Rosen could be moved immediately then. All
right, let's take a break. Coach, we'll see you a little bit later on. Coming up, do the Rockets have any chance to win the West after dropping to the 4 seed? That's next on First Things First. Saturday on FS1, we got the Rockies and Giants at 4 Eastern, followed by Robbie Cano and the Mets taking on Freddie Freeman and the Braves. It is an MLB doubleheader. Saturday, FS1 and the Fox Sports app. Baseball is upon us. We'll get to the Rockets' title hopes in a second, but first, Heat, Nets. Karis LeVert driving baseline delivers the big dunk over Duncan Robinson.
Oh, he dunks on the fellow Michigan guy there. Goes baseline. I was at this game. He tapped him on his back and everything. Oh, young fella, good try.
They were trying to boom on your guy Jared Allen last night.
Oh, everyone was trying to. Hey, they was trying to get in the highlights last night.
All right, more from Miles Bridges. This time going baseline for the reverse dunk.
All right, listen, Charlotte. You might have squandered your last year with Kemba Walker. How you let the Pistons get in the playoffs over you? How you let Orlando get in the playoffs over you, Charlotte?
And you're going to lose your best player probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You see, Miles Bridges, you get away from Coach Izzo. He stopped yelling at you. You get your lift back.
Absolutely.
You couldn't do that at Michigan State.
Hawks and
Coach
Pacers.
Izzo not having it.
Trae Young, fun to watch. He hits Darren Collison with a quick between-the-legs move before making the layup.
This is where I hope Zion goes. I hope they win the lottery, man. Yeah, Trae Young and Zion, I'll watch them for a decade now. That's what I'm hoping.
I don't know if Zion will make it 10 years in Atlanta. That fried chicken and grits from Waffle House, he'll be 360.
Magic City?
What?
No idea.
What?
No clue. The Rockets didn't play last night, but they still somehow lost. Houston dropped to the 4th seed in the West, where they're now slated to play the Jazz in a first-round matchup. Not a terrible matchup unless they win, I said facetiously, and then it sets up a potential second-round matchup with the Golden State Warriors instead of the highly anticipated Western Conference Finals rematch. Antoine, how tough have things gotten for Houston now that they have fallen to that 4th seed?
I think it got real tough because I think you're going to play against a team that's going to be very physical with you. It's going to be a grueling series. They're not going to be scared. Their superstars gotten much better this year. Added 4 points to his average. He was great in the playoffs last year.
Talking about Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell, he was great last year in the playoffs. And I think defensively, if you look at how they played through the regular season, they really defended Houston really, really well. And obviously that's their makeup. Can they muster up and score enough points to win 4 games? I don't know if they can do that, but this is going to be a 6-7 game series. This worked out really poorly for the Houston Rockets.
So all of these things had to happen for the Rockets to end up in the 4th spot. 2 nights ago, they had to lose at the buzzer to Oklahoma City. That set this all into play. After went into that 4th quarter, up 13, lose at the buzzer. Then last night, all that needs to happen for them to be the 2 seed is Denver lose. Minnesota is up 11 on Denver with 3 minutes left in that game. Denver scores 15 straight points. Okay, so now the Rockets are the 3 seed unless Portland wins. Portland is down 25 at the half, only plays 6 guys. They come all the way back.
Amazing.
And they win. So now the Rockets are the 4 seed. My friends in Houston are panicked. The best record in the NBA post-All-Star break was for naught. I'm here to tell you, relax. You own the Utah Jazz. You swept them in the regular season last year. You beat them in 5 in the playoffs last year. You're going to see, oh, well, they split the season series this year. Yeah, you lost the first 2, which were early in the year, the Carmelo Anthony era of the Rockets, the pre-James Harden explosion part of the season. You played them twice more recently. You beat them soundly both times. The Rockets are good. And now, so the other, okay, so even to get past Utah, but now you have Golden State. Listen, you're going to have to go through Golden State at some point. Like, to me, this season is no better or worse if you lose to Golden State in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, wherever. If you lose to Golden State, you're no better than you were last year. If you beat Golden State, this season was the success you wanted it to be. So people in Houston are panicked and upset and think everything was squandered. I think the way it fell, it feels like everything went against you. I don't think it hurt them that bad.
Yeah, I do agree with you as far as if I do lose to Golden State, it doesn't matter either the 2nd or 3rd round if you're Houston. But if I am going into a series with Golden State, I would much rather finish my series first before they finish their series, this time with the Clippers. I'm pretty certain of this. I got a little more concerned because I know Golden State is what they're going to do what they have to do against the Clippers. So how many more extra days does Steph Curry and the rest of this team have over me in getting that rest? And this year, they have a home court advantage. So I do believe it's a huge advantage compared to last year going against them. I don't want, man, Utah has been a tough out in the playoffs for a long time. Now, I do believe if they're able to get those 2 games in Utah, because the players could have got a lot of rest in Utah. They don't know hanging out and everything. So they couldn't be, if they get a sweep, they would be the most rested team after spending those few days there in Utah for games 3 and 4.
If you are Utah, so how are you going to slow down this Rockets team? Is it just going to all go through Rudy Gobert? Are you going to make him go in there and take away half of Harden's game?
Well, obviously, I think with Utah, they're a very good defensive team. They've been there under Quinn Snyder. They'll have a defensive plan in place to try to slow down James Harden. But obviously, I think for Utah, it's all about scoring. Can they score enough points to keep up with the Houston Rockets? If they can't score enough points, there's no way they can be in this series. I disagree with Nick a little bit. I believe it's going to be a 6-7 game series. I don't think Houston's going to just walk through them like they did last year. I believe at home, Utah is going to be capable of getting those 2 games at home. And I think it's going to go 6 or 7 games. Do I believe that Houston's going to lose the series? No. Playing Golden State early or late, it doesn't matter. You're right about that. Actually, it may work into their benefit playing them early. James Harden's probably a little bit more fresher going into the second round.
Okay.
So, you look at that situation when because he's going to be the main guy, obviously, coming to the Golden State series. So I don't mind when they play him at second or third round. But a first-round matchup, you want to pick that because, if it's a situation, if you can get it done in 4 or 5, I think they just create themselves a 6 or 7 game series.
You handled the offensive side as far as the Jazz. They definitely have to be the most effective offensively that they've been all season going against someone like the Rocket. But I'm going to go with you, Jenna, and Rudy Gobert. I believe that they double-team with the pick and roll. Take the ball out of Harden's hand. So if they're able to do that, we know Houston likes to go with the pick and roll. They like to go with their big Capella. So if I'm Rudy Gobert, Jenna, I know that's the reason why you brought up his name and everything. I'm trapping with him. He's one of the best centers we have in the league. I'm bringing him out of the paint, trapping, and forcing the Rockets. Let those other players force them to score.
Beat you.
Yes.
Force those guys to beat you. Force P.J. Tucker to hit corner threes. Force Eric Gordon to play well. I get all that. Now, one element on this series specifically. James Harden, one of the reasons they lost in what I think was the worst moment for James Harden this series, they lost to the Spurs a couple years ago where Kawhi had got hurt, where Manu ends up blocking Harden. Harden has like a dozen turnovers in the final game. Harden could not hit floaters. The Spurs, the entire series, dared him to hit mid-ranger floaters, and he couldn't do it. The part of his game, other than the step-back 3 that has improved the most year over year, is he is now one of the best floaters shooters in the league. Why does that matter? Because Gobert, that's how you get it over Rudy Gobert, is you shoot those floaters. So there's that element. Where I disagree with both of you, and maybe with Daryl Morey as well, because I think he probably agree with you guys. If you're telling me Houston's going to play one of these 3 teams in the first round, Utah, Oklahoma City, or San Antonio, I'd rather play Utah. Oklahoma City, we talked about the element they bring and when we thought they might be playing Houston. San Antonio, the residual effects, even if you move past the Spurs, of your next opponent getting to look at how Pop defended you, what schemes Pop threw out you, the sets Pop made you go against, and then being able to use that against you with better players, I think that's damaging. So now, the best would have been the Clippers, obviously. Everyone would have wanted to draw the Clippers in the first round. I get that. But of those 3 teams, I'd rather play Utah if I'm
there's
Houston.
only one good draw, and that's the Clippers. That's why the West is what it is. But I know you talk about Pop. The person we don't talk about is Quinn Snyder. He's one of the best X and O's guys that we have in the NBA. And Utah, Nick, it's not him and I, man, through the years. It's always been tough in Utah.
It's true.
Their team is always made up a certain way. They have one of the real home court advantages that we have in the NBA. And, man, Houston, man, they go cold a quarter. Okay, now.
Oh, that's fair.
Those
are all fair points. I'm not. And Utah, by the way, the 3 best teams in the West post All-Star break: Houston, Golden State, Utah. I'm not acting like Utah's not a really good team. I just think that they're not a good enough offensive team, I believe, to give Houston real trouble.
All right. Antoine, we'll see you a little later. Got to take a break. Coming up, can Aaron Rodgers and the Packers get back to the Super Bowl despite all the distractions? That's still ahead on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, time for Say What? So on Tuesday night, Anthony Davis wore a shirt that said, "That's all, folks," which, of course, raised eyebrows and unibrows alike.
Oh, well done.
There you go. He was asked about why he wore the shirt. Say what?
So AD, just to make sure, so you don't choose what you wear every night. Somebody lays out your clothes and you just wear whatever they lay down, you wear it.
Every night, Big Shot lays out what I'm going to wear in the game. So I have no control in that.
Picks out his own clothes. Is that what he said?
No, he said he doesn't pick out his own clothes.
That's
he said I have no control over it. Listen, okay, I don't pick out my own clothes either. But if all of a sudden there was something, I was wearing something that said something ridiculous or would cause controversy, you know what? I would say, I'm going to audible. We all have kids. Like, my 5-year-old picks out her own clothes. Like, what is he talking about? I don't understand this comment by Anthony Davis. He is saying someone else picks out my clothes and I have no control. What are they? They don't set them next to the closet?
Yeah, he's
where the other clothes are?
Anthony Davis is just like Nick Wright.
What's
Nick,
that?
you've never pulled
Someone sits out your clothes,
you literally
and you have no control.
Every day.
What is that lapel pin right there?
Yeah, what is
What's
the
that
key?
key to?
It's a key.
What's the key to, though?
My heart.
Oh, boy. All right.
Really?
No, you remember
Now, that's the first time you ever said that.
Yeah, you're better not knowing.
I knew you were about to ask me, and I was just wheels were turning. My wife's my stylist.
Absolutely.
Listen, man. Listen here.
That's why you got
Anthony Davis. Here, hey, Anthony Davis.
Toucan Sam jumping out your pocket.
Yeah, I do.
The reason
Bird.
why?
Right.
Because free bird.
Free bird. Exactly. That's 100% correct. That's why the bird's right there. But that's, hey, Anthony Davis, free advice.
But he's
run this
single,
back. Run this back and say, hey, I don't know if you know this, Space Jam's coming out. You guys, I didn't think everyone was going to make such a big deal out of it. It was my way of telling everyone I'm going to be in the movie. Me and Bugs. That's all, folks. How about that?
How long
Didn't
did
they tell you
that?
not to ever try to be funny?
What? That was funny.
Stories
and I can't
to
believe
start your morning.
Did somebody write that for you?
No, I stuck the landing.
You did. Masters starts today in Augusta. Tiger tees off at 11:04. Tiger in search of his 15th major and his first Masters victory since 2005. You know, Vegas has Tiger at 16-1 odds to win this. See, what do you expect from Tiger in Augusta?
I expect Tiger to compete, but this is the key, Jenna. People talking about, oh, man, Saturday is moving day. Listen, it's Tiger Woods, that first tee today, and those first 9 holes. 36 is the number. If Tiger can shoot a number like 34, 2 under on those first 9, he's always very nervous when he starts a huge event like this. Watch that first hole. People to the left of the fairway, watch yourself. Get yourself a hard hat because he's going to hit it over there. So I'm watching those first 9 holes. Nick, you have a couple other aspects as far as this game you want to be watching.
Yeah, listen, the par 5s are obviously the key. They've been the key for him in every Masters he's ever played in.
Yes.
He's over par on par 3s. He's over par on par 4s. And I think he's minus 169 on par 5s. Optimism for Tiger Woods. Last 2 majors, top 5 finishes.
Yes.
Damn near won the PGA. Was in position to win the major before until he took a really goofy flop shot, I think, on 13 when he had the lead on Sunday. So don't do what he did the major prior, where what did he, triple bogey the first hole of the tournament, double bogey the first hole of the Open, and it was bad from there. So stay in contention through the first 9, like you said, dominate the par 5s, and then let's see what you can do Friday and Saturday.
All right, let's move on to the NBA now. Dwyane Wade played in the final game of his career last night in Brooklyn. Triple-double in front of LeBron, CP3, Melo, and our own Cris Carter. See, what was it like at the game last night?
It was exciting. It was very exciting for Dwyane Wade, the extra excitement with his buddies, that being Melo, Chris Paul, and LeBron, all showing up, them in conjunction with the Brooklyn Nets playing a tribute video to Dwyane Wade before the game. Man, it was a big night. It was a big, big night. I was a season ticket holder for the Heat for a long, long time, so I've gotten close to seeing Dwyane Wade and that group, him and LeBron play together. So they do it the right way in the NBA as far as these legends leaving the game also.
Super cool night. Well done in Brooklyn. Happy Wade got a triple-double. And by the way, I know I mocked the comparison, but another similarity between Wade and Paul Pierce, their final game. Wade gets a triple-double. Paul Pierce had a triple-0. 0-0-0, 2 minutes of play. I don't think he got a tribute video in his last game.
The last segment, you were funny.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't funny. That was mean.
It was spiteful. It was mean. Sorry. It was just the truth.
Finally,
on the truth.
the Celtics.
Oh, now the Celtics again.
Gearing up for game 1 of their first-round matchup
boy.
with the Pacers on Sunday. After a pretty inconsistent regular season, Celtics ended up as the 4th seed in the East with a tough battle ahead, and they'll have to do it without Marcus Smart. The fiery guard will miss the first 2 rounds with an oblique injury. Yesterday, Kyrie Irving tried to put this past season in a little perspective.
A lot of just up and downs that just could have been handled better from a professional standpoint, personal. And I'm talking about me personally. I'm not talking about our team. You know, and it's just I had a lot of questions, a lot of just things that weren't being answered straight up about what it takes to be a great professional in this league, and I think that the frame of that is just outdated, you know, in terms of what you have to be every single day. And it's not that hard, you know what I mean? Like the media and all the stuff that comes with it. I think that it's an exciting part of that you got to be aware of. But the real part is just, literally what I used to wake up every single morning to do. Is to put a ball in the hoop and be really great at it.
All right, let's talk about the Celtics and the direction they're going in, because it's hard to figure out which Celtics team this is. It's been such an inconsistent regular season. What are expectations for them now that the players are starting?
I expect a version that I saw during the regular season, but I expect that version to be, because Kyrie Irving had a very good regular season. Now, as a team, the team was better when he wasn't on the court. How do they adjust to Marcus Smart being out? They got a lineup change. I believe it helps them play at a faster pace. They're going to be longer. Now, from a defensive standpoint, Kyrie Irving's going to have to play better defense, because without Marcus Smart out there, with him typically taking the toughest assignment in the backcourt, now the Pacers don't present a number of problems. With Victor Oladipo being out in the playoffs, they don't present that problem in the backcourt. But I expect Kyrie to try to be LeBron-ish, special, take over. Like, he had some times this year, now not in sync with his teammates, but, man, he took over quarters, took over games and everything. Now you're in the playoffs, and there's a lot more pressure on Kyrie than the other Celtics, because his future is up in the air. So I expect immediately from game number one, he comes out there on a mission, and I expect him to also, from an offensive standpoint, to be far more aggressive in this tighter rotation that I believe is going to help them, because Jaylen Brown's going to get more minutes. Tatum should get more minutes. And
Gordon Hayward.
Gordon Hayward, he should get more minutes in a way that how they utilize him becomes very important. But I expect Kyrie to be special, even at the Celtics. If they follow up a lackluster season with a lackluster postseason, I believe Kyrie's going to remove his name from it, because he's going to personally be on a mission to individually make sure that his stats look good.
And listen, this is what they were missing last year, we were told. They just didn't have the star. They didn't have the closer. They didn't have the guy you could trust in road playoff games. Remember last year, this Celtics team won one road playoff game the whole run. It was an overtime win in Philly that it so much looked like that Philly had won that the guy set off the confetti cannon during at the end of regulation. I put up or shut up time now for Boston. Kyrie has said, man, just can't wait to get to the playoffs. The team has enormous expectations built into this season and built into what this season will allow them to do in the future. You do well in these playoffs. You convince Kyrie to stay. You use 3 of those potential 4 first-round picks you're going to have, plus Jason Tatum, to acquire Anthony Davis, and you go into next season as the big favorites in the Eastern Conference. Or this playoffs go the way this regular season has gone. You lose games you shouldn't lose. Guys are unhappy. You're all of a sudden in a game 7 with the Pacers, while Milwaukee's been off for a week after sweeping the Pistons, and Giannis goes and annihilates you in round 2 if you get there. In which case, Kyrie Irving's last day with the Boston Celtics will be sometime in late April, or the best case scenario, very early May. And that will make this a disastrous season. And there's no way around this. This is not last year where you had legit, not injury excuse, injury explanation. Those weren't excuses for the Celtics. They got injured. That wasn't on them. But this year, Marcus Smart is an important player for you, and he's the guy that guards Bojan Bogdanovic, and I get that. But if you were the team you said you were, a Marcus Smart first-round injury cannot derail that. And that cannot be used as an excuse. And for Kyrie has been amazing in the playoffs with LeBron. This is going to be his first playoff game without LeBron. It's going to be his first playoff game where he's the best player on a team. I'm excited for him. I think he's going to follow up his great regular season with a very good postseason, even if it's brief. But we've never seen it. We've got to see him do it as the man on a team in the playoffs.
All right. Let's take a break. Coming up, can Aaron Rodgers and the Packers get back to the Super Bowl despite all the distractions? That's next on First Things First. Saturday on FS1, we got the Rockies and Giants at 4 Eastern, followed by Robbie Cano and the Mets, taking on Freddie Freeman and the Braves. An MLB doubleheader Saturday on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
All right, let's go Mets. I've decided they're my New York NL team.
Yes.
Decided that. Let's go Mets.
They need all the help they can get. Back here with Coach Mangini. Hey, tough week for Aaron Rodgers. Not so flattering article drops detailing the dysfunction between he and Mike McCarthy. A follow-up radio interview with Aaron calling it a smear campaign. And yesterday, Rodgers met with the media for the first time to address all of it. He maintained that despite everything, the expectations for the Packers remain the same.
Like I said a couple of days ago, I think, there isn't a grace period. This isn't like other transitions where you, kind of maybe give a pass for the first year or two as you get acclimated to the system. I mean, we have, a veteran quarterback, veteran offensive lineman. We signed, some big free agents for us, especially 3 on defense. And there's an expectation living and playing here that you're going to compete for championships, and I think we all expect to do that.
All right, Coach, if the Packers are going to get back into the playoffs, what do they have to do? How is their offense, how does this team have to gear itself up after everything that's happened in the offseason?
Well, the first thing I say is I agree with Aaron Rodgers to some degree. The expectations are the same. They're not the same. They're higher. You went and you made a change because you think that this transition is going to put you in a better place. He's healthy. They've retained the defensive coordinator, so they've got continuity on that side of the ball. They've got 2 first-round draft picks. They went and spent money in free agency. They've got 10 total draft picks. They retained the offensive line coach. They've got a veteran offensive line. To me, the expectations are higher than they were last season. Now, in order for that to be successful, there's going to have to be a very quick fusion between the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, and Aaron Rodgers, because it's all dependent on him. And I see the articles, they need to go get him a wide receiver. No, he needs to play at the level that we expect him to play at. He'll make everybody else around him better if he does that. But from a head coaching perspective, they need to accommodate the things that Aaron does well. And when I brought in Brett Favre to New York, the only way that Brett Favre was going to work is if we did the things that he did well, if we accommodated him and made sure that we gave him the best chance to be successful in our system and included things that he was comfortable with. And they have to do that. They have to do that. So as excited as they are to maybe put their scheme in, you need to pump it a little bit and make sure the scheme works for him.
And so that's where the LaFleur-Rodgers relationship really has to take place immediately, right? That's where it has to be open lines of communication. That's where Aaron has to stay true to what he was he was really upset that there was an idea that Mark Murphy, or a report I should say, that Mark Murphy told him, don't be the problem. And he said that conversation never happened. I talked to Mark. Whether that conversation happened or not, I think is almost irrelevant to the point that now Rodgers needs to not be the problem, right? He needs to stay true to that. He needs to get with Matt LaFleur and figure out, okay, here is what you ideally want to do. Here's what I ideally want to do. How do we find the best meld of it? Because you're saying it shouldn't just be he hands it all over to LaFleur. Whatever you want, we'll do. That he should have some level of input on it, and that he needs to make sure, not just from LaFleur watching film of Aaron Rodgers, but from talking with him, here's what I actually like the best. Here are some things maybe we didn't do under Mike McCarthy that I think I would do really well, and that relationship needs to be starting immediately.
It absolutely needs to be starting immediately, and as a first-time head coach, there is a learning curve that he's going to go through, and he's benefiting from keeping Mike Patton. I think that was a really good decision organizationally for him to do that. But don't be the problem is sound advice. Be the catalyst. Be the reason that this team moves forward. Be the reason that this decision works, because you drive it more than anybody else does. And on the flip side, as a head coach, make sure that he's in the best possible position to be successful in terms of his comfort level.
How much different is this offense going to look next year with Rodgers and LaFleur there?
Well, I believe it will look different. I don't care what it looks like in the first 16 games, because it becomes important to me. If Green Bay is going to be successful, any successful team is built on the premise, how are we going to play our 8 games at home? How are we going to win once we get into the playoffs? There's no team that's saying, you know something, I plan on playing in the playoffs on the road. You'd like to build something like, okay, if I make it, I'm going on the road. But your team is built to play at home. Aaron Rodgers, the best team he was on, didn't win the Super Bowl. That was that 2011 team that went 15-1, and he was the MVP of the league. They get a bye week. They play the Giants. In that Giants game, y'all remember Tom Coughlin's face froze off? You remember that?
Purple, yeah.
Okay, you know, this is what they did in that game. They decided to throw the ball 46 times in sub-zero weather. So for me, you can talk about all that scheme you want. If you can't do it when it's cold, because if they don't have home field advantage, there's a good chance Chicago might have home field advantage. So build your team around where you play your football, and I believe offensively, being able to run the football. They've had a top 10 rush offense since Aaron's been there one time. From a defensive standpoint, you spent some money. You got a couple draft picks. Create some turnovers, all right? That would help Aaron Rodgers out in these possessions. So you guys can get consumed with Aaron Rodgers as much as you want to. You want to throw the ball as much as you want to, but when it gets cold, the only way Green Bay is going to be able to win is have a balanced attack, be able to have some defense going to turn the ball over, and you can't rely on Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball 45 times in sub-zero temperature.
And part of that is Aaron's willingness to accept that. And we talk about Tom all the time, and if the game plan calls for running the ball 45 times, then so be it. It calls for running the ball 45 times. If it calls for throwing 10 hitches, really short outside pass, then that's what you do. You do whatever you have to do to win. And it's hard for a lot of guys when they've had success to look past their stats, to look past the things that make them look really good and say, okay, I'm going to take a more global view, and what do we need to do collectively just to win this game this week?
But it's easy for guys to do that when their introduction to the league is, we won doing exactly that. And that was Tom's introduction to the league. We won through running the football. We won through our defense. When you're Aaron Rodgers and your introduction to the league is, I'm all we've got. I'm not only the best player on this team, we were, the year we went 15-1, the 32nd ranked defense in football. Forced bunch turnovers, second most in football. The last few years, I don't think the Packers haven't run the ball because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to. I think they haven't run the ball because they haven't had great offensive line. They haven't had great running backs.
I guarantee you that Aaron Rodgers has not supported them running the football. I can guarantee you part of the problem is Aaron Rodgers thinking that I can do it myself. I can guarantee you that. I don't know a guy who's blessed to be able to throw the ball, doesn't think going through the air is better than going by ground. One of my great friends, Dan Marino. I hope Dan Marino didn't get supported by a defense or a running game. His career ends up going to one Super Bowl, and that was it. That is not what you want to see from Aaron Rodgers. So he was also playing in Miami. So he had a chance to be able to get away with it compared to Green Bay.
And we talk about support. Every year we talk about New England transitioning. He doesn't have receivers. He doesn't have offensive linemen. Nate Soldier leaves. This guy leaves. That guy leaves. And guess what? It transitioned. And the language has to stop being or starting with I. Like let's remove the I and start looking at this from a we perspective.
Okay, that last point's totally fair. But what also I think has to change, and we do this across sports, is we talk about a guy as the best in the world, and in Brady's case, the best ever. And then when guys are less than that, we look at it as a huge negative. Nobody else is Tom Brady. It's why he gets to be the universally accepted GOAT. It's why he gets to be, there's no debate about who the greatest quarterback of all time is. It's Brady. And so we can't just say with...
It's not that Brady's the greatest quarterback, because Brady is not the best athlete ever played. He's not the best thrower of the football. But as far as running the team, engineering, the things are important. He is the best field general that we have seen. He is the best at adapting to who he used to be, turned into something else, and taking coaching to its limit. So Tom Brady, I know some of the greatest quarterbacks. I know how rigid they were. I know the lack of flexibility that they had in them. Tom Brady has not had that, and we're going to give him credit for it because he does not have the talent that these other guys have.
I totally agree with that, and that's almost my point. My point is Brady is the universally accepted GOAT despite not having these physical gifts because he is so great at the things you're talking about. So holding anyone to that intangible standard of, well, Brady does it, I think is unfair. I think it's when it's
unfair for us to...
Yeah, I don't think it's unfair at all because we're not talking about things that a person can't achieve. We're not saying that you have to have this incredible arm strength like Tom Brady. You have to have this incredible mobility like Tom Brady. We're talking about things that
you can control.
Decisions that you decide to make in the locker room. Decisions that are inherently in your control.
But for some reason, he's the only quarterback in the league that's ever done it on this level. He's the only quarterback currently playing. Cam Newton can't do it. Matt Ryan evidently can't do it. Drew Brees evidently couldn't do it. So if no one else
can, and we criticize the rest of them too.
Okay, all right. If all of them are going to get the same heat when they're not living up to the Brady
all of them
standard?
shouldn't get the same heat. You should get what the heat you should give to a quarterback is based on his ability. To much is given, much is required. It's a Bible verse, but it's also real. Aaron Rodgers has more talent. He should get more heat. His team is doing less than what he should do. There is no more valuable player on the football field because he's touching it every time. And they're getting less out of Aaron Rodgers than they're getting out of other people. So as long as I'm on this show, Aaron Rodgers will get more heat because he's got more damn talent. That's why. I don't criticize Andy Dalton as much as him. Why? The kid's got red hair, man. Hey, he don't have the same gifts. He don't have, all right? He don't have the same talent.
Not right.
That's the... Oh, I am right.
No, poor guy.
I mean, I don't criticize him because of his hair. I criticize him because of his arm talent.
Right. Coach,
I mean, nothing wrong with redheads.
Good to see you.
Glad you got to experience that.
I mean, nothing wrong with redheads.
Nothing at all.
I mean, as long as they can throw.
Yeah,
Dude cost me $20,000 in the Pro Bowl. Don't tell me.
What I would say. Will Magic Johnson's resignation fuel LeBron next season?
It always
We're
comes down to that 20
act like
in the Pro Bowl.
Don't you can't
it
say
always
that. I told him that.
To the 20,000 in the Pro Bowl.
Ain't no mystery. Like y'all scared of people.
Yeah.
No, he knew how I feel about it.
They're his feelings. Back here with Antoine Walker. Boy, the Stars were out in Brooklyn last night. LeBron James, the rest of that banana boat crew in the house to watch Dwyane Wade's final game. This a day after LeBron's former team president, Magic Johnson, shocked the basketball world by stepping down. LeBron was reportedly among the many stunned by Magic's decision, as was GM Rob Pelinka, who will stay on in that role, where he'll reportedly now have even more power. All right, Antoine, let's spin this forward. What's next for the Lakers?
I think the first conversation you got to call LeBron James. I think Jenny Buss and Rob, if Rob Pelinka's going to be your GM, you got to call LeBron James and get on the same page with him, because obviously he was going through Magic and they was the ones having the conversation. So you got to start with that conversation. He doesn't have to pick the coach or the head of basketball operations, but you still want him in the loop. I mean, you got the best player in the world with a small window of about 2 or 3 years where you have a chance to possibly win a championship, so you want to have him involved. And then after that, you got to look at if you can pick the right personnel, you got to look at the roster. You got to have, I think, a plan A and a plan B. I think obviously you shoot for the big guys, it's Anthony Davis, the Kyrie Irvings, you shoot for them, and then you have to have a plan B. A plan B that may be the Kemba Walkers of the world.
A Kemba Boogie combination potential.
So you got to have two plans with LeBron James, and then you move forward from there. I think the young guys are really good. I think Ingram, if he can. Just injuries, the blood clots are not serious. But Kuzma seems like he's going to be a good. Josh Hart was a good pick. So you got some good young guys in play, but you got to start with a real conversation with LeBron James.
What about the coach, though? Like, we can't move on with Luke Walton and expect to get the best out of LeBron,
You
right?
think you can?
I think they were hurt this year. You got to put that in perspective. They were the 4th seed. I think Luke Walton has coached superstars. Even though he was a small sample size. He's been in the locker room with a Kobe Bryant, a superstar. He's been around Phil Jackson. I think he can handle, coaching 2 stars. I disagree with that. I think the injuries really hurt him and his coaching ability this year.
Well, I disagree. I agree with the injury, but I disagree as far as him just being a leader at this stage of LeBron's career. Nick and I have talked about it back and forth. Maybe after a process in the NBA, it's hard to grow as a coach because you're under the spotlight. So he might be a qualified head coach, but for right now, I can't take the chance with LeBron. If I had a different team, I would take the chance. I saw too many things this year from an X's and O's standpoint that would let me think that, no, I got to move on. And I saw a lack of respect from the younger players, from other veteran players, that Luke Walton, that he received, that I can't move on with that either. So if it's me, Rob Pelinka got to go immediately, and Luke's got to go immediately. That's the way to move on with LeBron James to be able to get the absolute best Jenna out of him.
Remember when Jim Buss was told I think 1982, maybe 1983, got a huge problem. Magic Johnson doesn't like the coach. And not Jim Buss, pardon me, Jerry Buss. And do you know what the great Dr. late Jerry Buss said? What's the problem? They just fire the coach.
Yes.
And so, with respect to Luke Walton, ain't no problem. You just fire the coach. There were a lot of hours spent talking about what the Lakers should do yesterday on television, radio, print, internet. Nobody, and I'm not saying that talking heads are always right, but the cumulative wisdom is usually pretty on point. Nobody said, you know what they should do? Status quo. You know what? Magic's gone. Just upgrade Pelinka.
But this is the problem, though. Man, we get paid to be on TV. We don't own the team. There's one voice in Los Angeles right now that's obviously saying that Luke Walton is still there. That's the only
Rob
reason.
Pelinka. And obviously, status quo. At least 24 hours after this happened, seems to be the direction they're going.
And I didn't, by the way, I didn't expect people to get fired today or yesterday or the next day. I think even if massive changes are coming, it was going to take time. I mean, hell, Jeannie Buss and the Brain Trust haven't even met with the media yet. It's just the players who've met with the media. But if the Lakers do anything other than go after the best possible presidents of basketball operations, and as part of that interview process, say to that person, it is a blank slate, whatever you want. I brought up Masai Ujiri yesterday, not just because he's great at what he does, but you know what that would kind of hurt? Toronto's ability to keep Kawhi. And you know what that might actually help? The Lakers' ability to bring in Kawhi.
Yeah. It might swing it in your favor.
Right. You brought up Jerry West. Similar situation. Brian Winters brought up Bob Myers. Guess what? I don't think Clay's going anywhere. But this is a major opportunity. And if the answer is upgrade Pelinka, bring in Kurt Rambis,
but Nick,
then you're going to make the same mistakes again.
We already heard the report from Ramona Shelburne. They're not only going with Pelinka, they're giving him even more power. She likes him.
I agree, Nick. I do believe they got to bring in a big-time guy to run the organization. But I don't necessarily know if that's the guy. 3 years you couldn't get past LeBron. You take a wild card. You bring in Kawhi Leonard. You may get past that.
Oh, that guy you mean Masai Ujiri.
And you fire Dwayne Casey, a coach that's won 50-plus games and has gotten you right there, and you're going against LeBron James every year. So I don't know if he's necessarily the greatest guy out there for the Laker job, because the Laker job is very sensitive. It's right now. You don't have time to build it. Because LeBron James, we don't know how much longer LeBron James can play at the level that he's playing at. But I do agree with you. They got to bring in the big-name guy. And whoever that guy is has to hire his coach.
Right. And he has to have the power. And he has to have I said that the Jeannie Buss would be doing whomever this person is a favor by firing Luke, so whoever they bring in, their first job didn't have to be to fire Luke. But if that's not the way they want to go about it, fine. But you have to tell whoever you bring in, what you do with Pelinka is your choice. What you do with Luke is your choice. Like, you have to empower them.
You have to make sure that there's a clear separation between the basketball operations, because, man, in the last 6 years, Jeannie Buss, God bless her, as a female running the Lakers, God bless her, but she has done an awful job. And if we were being honest, if we were doing the same thing that we would do if a man had that job, we would be criticizing her. She has been awful. Now, from a business standpoint, they benefited. The fans, they sell out everything in L.A. They got that part, but she needs to remove herself from the basketball operations. Now, I think what Nick is talking about is this shouldn't be a family-owned or run business. This should be about the best. If you're the Lakers, so let's go out and get the top people at their field. Let's interview all these people. Toronto, let's go to Houston. Let's check out the Warriors, all the Danny Ainge's guy. Let's check out all these people so that we get the best in that position. Because I believe there was a conflict between her and Magic Johnson on Luke Walton and Rob Pelinka moving forward. And I believe that that's why Magic Johnson retired, walked away from that job. It wasn't, I don't want to have fun. I don't believe Magic had complete control. She keeps repeating that, but there's a problem with Luke Walton and what everyone else thinks compared to what she thinks.
And Magic said a lot in that rambling 45 minutes. One of the things he talked about was an element of backstabbing or people going behind each other's backs. Also, Jeannie Buss talked about a few weeks ago on some podcast about how she met with each individual member of the organization to try to figure out where the leaks were coming from. And that's where she came up with, oh, they're not coming from anywhere. The media's just making them up. None of my folks are leaking. I did my mole hunt. There's no moles, so they're just making them up. So there clearly was a lack of continuity between the triumvirate of Jeannie Buss, Pelinka, Magic. Magic removed himself from it. But if this just ends with the Lakers running it back, with them saying, well, we were in fourth place, we'll be healthier, Luke's getting better, then you need a systemic overhaul. It was the biggest concern, but when we didn't think Magic was going to quit, because nobody thought he was going to quit, was even if they get the superstar, are they going to be able to do the small things right? When I bring up Masai, and we don't have to debate Masai specifically, the way he's filled out that roster, the way the players have developed.
He got the most out of Kawhi.
The work that Magic Johnson didn't want to play.
Right. Chris brought up Pat Riley, right? A guy like that, to be a guy that you're familiar with. Someone like that can be the Yoda of an organization and put things in place. That's what the Lakers are missing.
The one thing that I fault Magic for, I don't know who her brain trust is, who she's going to get with in the room by herself. I thought of Magic, and if he had love for her, the way he talked about in his interview, he would have sat down and, look, I'm going to step down, but I'm going to help you in this process and picking somebody, because I don't know who her brain trust is.
Right.
You know, so who's the people that she's going to get in the room with by herself to make the decision to keep Rob Pelinka, to make the decision to keep Luke Walton. So that's the hard part about it.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.